There's this moment after you've won big, when your heart's still pounding and your brain's catching up, that you expect applause. Maybe even a thank you. I got neither. I stood there, holding the signed contract from a $12 million client, and my boss looked me dead in the eye and said, "We're going in a different direction." I laughed, thinking it was a joke. It wasn't. Before we dive in, where are you listening from? And what time is it for you right now? Drop a comment below. I read everyone. Help us reach 10,000 subscribers before the end of the month. I made a promise to my dog. Once we hit 10K, I'll buy him a brand new cooling mat. He's counting on you, and so am I. So if you enjoyed the story, please hit that subscribe button. My name is Ryan Mercer. I'm 32, relentlessly driven, and the guy execs bring in when they want a miracle. I just never expected the knife to come from the same hand that shook mine after every win. It started on a Tuesday. Rainy, of course, like some tired cliché the universe likes to toss in for dramatic effect. I just walked out of the glass-walled conference room at Vector Link Solutions, holding a freshly signed deal from TitanCore, a notoriously hard-to-land cybersecurity giant. The contract was for $12.3 million over 3 years, our biggest deal in company history. The team clapped when I walked back in. My buddy Marcus gave me a fist bump. Even the interns stood up. I'd spent 5 months on this, taking calls at 1 a.m., flying across states, massaging egos, pulling late-night mock demos. And it worked. So when my boss, Brent Holloway, called me into his office an hour later, I thought it was to talk bonuses, or maybe even a promotion. The blinds were drawn. He was pacing. That wasn't good. "Ryan, have a seat." I did, trying not to let my brain spiral into worst-case scenarios. Then he said it. "We're letting you go, effective immediately." I blinked. "You're what?" "We appreciate what you've done for VectorLink, but the executive team has decided to pivot toward a new sales strategy. You're not part of that vision." I laughed. I mean, what else do you do when someone fires you right after you hand them the biggest win of their quarter-century-old company? "This is a joke, right?" I said, still laughing. Brent's face didn't flinch. "Number HR will process your severance. You have 20 minutes to collect your things." I could feel my ears burning. I stood up, slow. "I just brought in the biggest account this company has ever seen." "And we thank you for that," he said, as if I'd brought donuts instead of a multi-million-dollar deal. What he didn't know, what no one in that office knew, was that I'd quietly started something on the side. A platform, a prototype, a spark. And now, jobless, humiliated, and burning with a kind of betrayal I didn't know I could feel, I realized maybe this was exactly the push I needed. But before I left that office, I made one final stop, back to the conference room where I'd closed the TitanCore deal, because something didn't add up. And that's when I noticed the folder on the table. Still open. Still glowing. Inside it was a single email thread that would blow everything up. I wasn't supposed to see it. The folder on the conference table had been left open in a rush. Maybe by Brent, maybe by someone else. The screen inside glowed with the soft light of an open laptop, the email app still running. I shouldn't have looked. But when someone stabs you in the back, you don't walk away quietly. You look for the fingerprints on the blade. The subject line stopped me cold. Internal realignment, Mercer exit timeline. It was dated 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks. I clicked. Confirmed. Once TitanCore is signed, we can proceed with Mercer's offboarding. He's not aligned with future objectives, and his style doesn't match the new executive polish we want heading into Q3. Let him secure the deal, then execute cleanly. Minimal drama. Brent Holloway, Senior Vice President Sales. I stared at the screen like it might morph into something else. Anything else. Execute cleanly? Like I was a liability being neutralized? Like I was some broken tool to be discarded? I snapped a photo with my phone. I didn't even think, just instinct. I knew what this was now. This wasn't about strategy or alignment or any of the usual corporate garbage. This was personal. See, Brent hated that I didn't play the politics game. I wasn't the guy who stayed late to schmooze or brown-nosed my way into dinner with board members. I closed deals, I brought results. And worse, for guys like him, I made it look easy. So he used me. He needed Titan Core to close because his own job was on the line after 2 quarters of flatlining growth. He used me like a scalpel, then tossed me before I could cut deeper into his narrative. I walked out of that room in a daze. People were staring. The same ones who clapped for me an hour ago were now whispering behind mugs of lukewarm coffee. I passed Marcus, who looked like he'd seen a ghost. "Dude, what the hell is happening?" he asked. I didn't answer. Not yet. Not until I had a plan. I packed my box slowly. Every photo, every award, every little artifact of the 7 years I'd poured into this place. As I reached for my nameplate, Brent strolled in like he owned the goddamn air. "No hard feelings, Ryan. You're talented. I'm sure you'll land on your feet." I looked him dead in the eye, and I smiled. "Oh, I will," I said. "You just made it a lot easier." He tilted his head, confused, but I didn't give him the satisfaction of an explanation. Not yet. Because here's what he didn't know. That prototype I'd been building in the quiet hours, the one I'd shown no one, it was built for companies like Titan Core. And they trusted me, not Brent. What came next was risky, maybe even reckless, but I was all out of patience. That night, I made one call. Titan Core's CTO picked up on the second ring. "Ryan?" "Yeah, it's me," I said, staring at the ceiling in my dark apartment, the glow of the city bleeding through the blinds like a restless pulse. "Do you have 5 minutes?" It was 10:17 p.m., but I knew Alan Chow, Titan Core's CTO, never really slept. The man ran on caffeine, code, and paranoia, the good kind. The kind that made him meticulous about every single decision, including the partners he trusted. "You're calling from a personal line," he said. Sharp as ever. "Yeah, I'm not with Vector Link anymore." Silence. Then, "What?" "They fired me, today, few hours after I handed them your contract." "That makes no sense." "Oh, it makes perfect sense if you read the email I just sent you. Subject line, 'The truth about Vector Link.' Check it." There was a long pause. I heard him clicking. Then, in a low voice, "Holy shit." "Yeah, they used me to land you. I wasn't part of their long-term plan. You're just a trophy client for them, Alan. A name to drop in board meetings. They don't understand your infrastructure. They don't care about what you're building." "But I do." He didn't speak for several seconds. Then he sighed. "This is dirty. Brent signed the final paperwork 2 hours ago." "But it's not activated yet, right? You're still in onboarding?" "Still in onboarding." "Then I want to offer you a second option." I got up from the couch, heart pounding, walked to my kitchen island, and opened the notebook I'd been sketching in for months. It's called Arc Pilot. I've been developing it off hours for a year. It's leaner than Vector's offering, tailored for distributed threat response in hybrid systems, and we built it cloud native from the ground up. I've got a working prototype, and I know your architecture. You'd be our first client, and our priority. Another pause, longer this time. I could hear him breathing. "You built this yourself?" "Me and a dev I brought in on contract. I didn't want to pitch it before it was ready, but now, it's ready." "Why should I trust you over a funded company?" Because you already did, I said quietly. Not the company. Me. I'm the one who got on planes, who read your infrastructure reports line by line, who stayed up until 3 a.m. adjusting your sandbox environments. You don't need a sales team in polished suits. You need someone who actually listens to what keeps you up at night. Silence. Then the sound of a slow exhale. Send me the demo link, he said. If it's real and it's good, I'll kill the deal. I emailed him the link with shaking hands. That night, I didn't sleep. The next morning, my phone buzzed. Alan Chow. Reviewed the demo. Impressed. Let's talk transition. NDA first. Send it over. Titan Core was back in play, but this time they were coming with me. And Brent? He was about to learn what happens when you build an empire on other people's work. I'll never forget the look on Brent's face when it hit him. But let's rewind. The week after that call with Alan, things moved fast. Titan Core's legal team sent a contract termination notice to VectorLink, citing ethical concerns and internal misrepresentation during the sales process. That phrasing? That was my wording. Alan let me write it. But here's the beautiful part. The ink on that deal wasn't even dry yet, which meant it hadn't been filed with the SEC or disclosed to the board. VectorLink couldn't spin it as a loss. They had to eat it. The fallout started in whispers. I still had friends on the inside, and Marcus wasn't just a friend. He was family. We'd come up together, shared beers after 12-hour pitch days, covered for each other when life got in the way. He texted me the morning after the announcement. Marcus, brother, what the hell did you do? Brent is losing it. I smiled for the first time in days. Turns out Brent had built his entire Q3 forecast around the Titan Core contract. He'd promised the board a market expansion strategy hinged on that deal. He'd used my numbers in his pitch deck. My deck, which I designed from scratch while he was golfing with investors in Palm Springs. Now, the client had walked. And Brent had no idea why. Until 2 days later, when Forrester Weekly ran a short, juicy little piece titled, Tech Giant Titan Core Reverses Major Partnership in Wake of Internal Misconduct Allegations. Brent called me at 6:41 a.m. I didn't answer. He emailed. Subject line, We need to talk. I let it sit in my inbox, unread. By the end of that week, 2 executives had resigned. Brent wasn't one of them, not yet. But I knew his leash was short. Meanwhile, on my end, things were moving at light speed. Alan introduced me to his head of procurement. We drafted a new contract, this time between Titan Core and Arc Pilot, my newly incorporated startup. I filed the LLC paperwork the same day, rented a shared office downtown, and hired my dev partner full-time. We weren't just playing the game anymore, we were building our own. The night after the Forrester article dropped, Marcus called me from his car. I could hear the panic in his voice. Dude, Brent knows it was you. He's trying to say you sabotaged the contract. I laughed. Let him try. I've got the emails, the timeline, and the receipts. But he's talking to legal. He might go public. Let him, I said. I didn't break anything. I built something. Then I paused. But if he pushes this, I might just break my silence. Because what Brent didn't know, or maybe forgot, was that I wasn't just some sales guy with hustle. I was the architect of his success, and I still had one more card to play, one that would not only expose him, but rewrite the whole damn story. The thing about narcissists like Brent, they always think they're 3 moves ahead, until the boardroom lights flicker, and suddenly they're the only one without a chair when the music stops. 2 days after the article dropped, I got a call. Not from Brent, not from Marcus, from Amara Lynn, VectorLink's chief legal officer. Ryan Mercer, she said, crisp and controlled. Do you have a moment? I do, I said, stepping away from my whiteboard full of architecture plans and scribbled dreams that were finally turning into a real product. We're conducting an internal review regarding the Titan Core contract, she continued. Certain claims have been made suggesting you breached client trust or acted with malicious intent after your departure. I smiled. There it was. Brent's Hail Mary. Would you like me to forward you the timeline, recorded calls with Alan Chow, and the photo of Brent's email planning my termination before I signed the deal? I said, keeping my voice calm. Or should I just CC the press directly? There was a pause. Just a beat. I think the first option would be preferable, Amara said. I sent it all. Every file, every time-stamped photo, every message that showed how I'd been maneuvered out after being used. 5 minutes later, she replied, Received. Understood. You won't be hearing from our legal team again. Boom! A day later, Marcus texted me again. Marcus, Brent's gone. Effective immediately. Board forced him out. You torched the whole fucking castle, man. Not exactly. I didn't torch it. He set the fire. I just handed the board the flashlight. Word spread fast in the industry. You can't lose a whale like Titan Core without people asking questions. Recruiters started reaching out. But I wasn't biting. I wasn't looking to go back. I wasn't looking to be someone else's miracle worker anymore. ArcPilot was alive. We'd soft-launched a closed beta to 3 mid-size clients, Alan referred personally. Our burn rate was lean, our infrastructure was tight, and we were already cash flow positive before month 2. I'd found a quiet kind of power in building something that couldn't be taken from me with a 5-minute meeting and a fake smile. And then, one night, while I was closing up the office, a LinkedIn message came in. It was from Natalie Sharp, a senior partner at one of the top VC firms in the Bay Area. Heard what you did with Titan Core. People are talking. Want to meet? I stared at the screen. The same industry that once tried to shelf me like obsolete tech was now watching me with hungry eyes. I was no longer just a rainmaker. I was a storm. But there was still one last thing I had to do. One final move that wasn't about revenge. It was about reclaiming something Brent thought he stole. My name, my work, my story. I called up an old podcast producer I knew from a sales expo years back. Ever want to hear the real version of what happened at VectorLink? I asked. She paused. The episode dropped on a Tuesday morning. I didn't expect it to blow up. It was just me, sitting in a small studio across from Layla Grant, the voice behind Burn Rate, a podcast about high-stakes careers and corporate betrayal. I thought a few niche listeners might tune in, maybe some startup nerds who'd been through the ringer. But by noon, it was trending on LinkedIn. By 3 p.m., Tom Twittered Vector Leak was the #1 topic in tech Twitter. By dinner, my inbox looked like someone had hit it with a grenade made of investor interest, podcast invites, and cold emails from ex-Vector Link employees I hadn't spoken to in years. I didn't hold back in that interview. I told them everything. How Brent planned my termination weeks before the deal closed. How I was used, discarded, and then slandered. I didn't trash anyone. I just laid the facts bare, one time-stamped receipt at a time. But most importantly, I told them about ArcPilot. Not as a revenge project, but as something born from years of listening to what clients actually needed. Something lean, responsive, ethical. Built by people who cared more about solving problems than schmoozing on yachts. That authenticity? It hit. 2 days later, we got our first inbound from a Fortune 100 company. Not through cold outreach, not through a demo, through the podcast. The exec wrote, "We need to talk. We've had enough of the vector links of the world. Let's build something better." I couldn't believe it. Somewhere in all of this, the betrayal, the humiliation, the rage, I'd stumbled into something real, not just success, not just money, freedom, clarity, purpose. A week later, I got a letter in the mail from VectorLink's new interim CEO. No apology, just a formal statement informing me that they had launched an internal ethics training initiative inspired by recent events. It ended with a note that they hoped I would consider constructive closure. I laughed out loud. Closure? I'd already closed the door. What they didn't realize was I never needed revenge. I just needed them to get out of my way. Marcus and I grabbed drinks the night we signed our Series A term sheet. He looked at me across the bar, eyes wide. Do you ever think, if they hadn't fired you, I'd still be wasting my time making other people look good, I said. We clinked glasses, and as I walked home through the city that used to chew me up and spit me out, I felt something I hadn't in a long time. Peace. Not because I won, but because I remembered who I was before they tried to define me.